right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So this is Faith-Filled Explorations. This week, we are focused on solving our struggles with curriculum, especially when it comes to our Bible lessons and faith formation. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the ELEA YouTube channel. Please feel free to go to the channel. What do I want to say? Follow our YouTube channel. We have a playlist, especially for these recordings. We have other playlists that give you a little bit more of a deep dive into the how-tos of some of our back-end member information sites. Please feel free to drop your questions in chat along the way. I know that our presenters will offer some space for Q&A also. And I think I'm going to invite everybody to also introduce yourselves in chat. If you want to say who you are, who your team is, where you're from, the name of your school, if there's any context that would be helpful for the ELEA or for our presenters today, that would be wonderful if you shared that as well. And then I am thrilled to be joined by Gregory Rawn, owner and publisher of Spirit and Truth Publishing, and Cindy Paulson, lead editor at Spirit and Truth and former teacher in an ELCA school. Thank you both for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. And it sounds like I'm going to turn it over to Greg to get started.
Yes. Let me get this. Share. Hello, and thank you for being a part of this. I'm, as Corey mentioned, Gregory Rawn, and welcome to an overview of some of our materials. So, as Corey mentioned, I'm the owner and publisher here at Spirit and Truth Publishing. I earned a master's degree from Luther Seminary almost 20 years ago. And in 2010, I started Spirit and Truth Publishing. I developed the first curriculum we had, which was on liturgy and the church year. And then we just kept adding and gaining more people. And I should have looked when Cindy joined us, but it was a number of years ago. And I'm very thankful for her work with us.
And I am Cindy Paulson. I am the lead editor at Spirit and Truth. And Greg, I just looked, and I started 10 years ago working with Spirit and Truth. And it's been a great 10 years. I've been involved in curricula development for a long time. I worked at Augsburg Fortress, which is the Lutheran publishing house, now known as 1517 Media. And I was fortunate enough to work on some really cool projects, including the Spark Story Bible and the connected Sunday school curriculum and VBS. I have over 20 years in Christian education ministry mostly with children and youth. And as Corey said, I am a former teacher from an ELEA school in Westchester, California. So those were some really fun years. Greg?
Yes. So again, we are here to produce faith formation resources. And one of the things we're proud of is the fact that they are easy to use. We've heard that multiple times from customers. We have theologically sound. There aren't a lot of inclusive and strong materials. And so we want it to be easy for you and your teachers to do these lessons without having to make things up themselves. Our company currently has 16 different products. What we call the classroom is one of the main ones we'll be talking about today, looking at key Bible stories in a 2-year cycle. The narrative lectionary is actually kind of where we got started in that. Revised Common Lectionary, which is what most Lutheran churches use. We're really excited about intergenerational ministry. We also have a intergenerational confirmation curriculum. And then we will also talk about some of the thematic units we have that can be used for VBS, family events, and more with that. And here's our core values. We work to be able to be used by a wide variety of denominations and groups, schools. So we focus on the basics. So the basics being love. God loves us unconditionally, undeservedly, eternally. And what God calls us to do with that love is to return that love to God and also to share that love with those around us. And often that love for others is service, working towards justice, and just spreading God's kingdom with that. Another passion and part to me of that love is inclusivity and inclusive language, both in gender, abilities, socioeconomic situations, family diversity. We want the most number of people to feel welcome with that. A lot of that is in scripts, which Cindy will mention in a minute, but we just want that dignity for all people. As I mentioned, we work to be inclusive of many different denominations, but as I mentioned, I personally have a background, and Cindy as well, in the ELCA Lutheran. That's where I got my master's, and so I make sure that even if we don't use the Lutheran keywords of law and gospel and the like, everything we do is in accord with the ELCA Lutheran theology. And next.
So I have the joy of talking about our contributors. Every single one of our contributors are experienced Christian education professionals in congregations from small to large. Not all come from Lutheran background, and some have a background in Methodist or Presbyterian and Lutheran as well. Several have education in or a background in classroom teaching, and they're very well educated. Like Greg, many have advanced degrees in areas including special education, psychology, and theology. So they're well qualified. Now, I have a question for y'all, and I might start out with my challenge, but I would like to know what is challenging about teaching religion lessons or faith formations to you. And I'll give you my example as a first-year teacher in an ELEA school with 5th grade. I needed to spend a year teaching about Martin Luther. Not exactly the most exciting topic. I did bring in some gummy worms into a lot of lessons to just reinforce the diet of worms. And I was just really grateful for the few years I had volunteering, teaching confirmation, and my religion minor. So don't expect you to be quite as specific as that, but if you do have a story, I would love to hear it, so that I can see what I can speak to. So does anyone willing to speak up and talk about a challenge with teaching religion? Or in the comments? And it's okay if you don't, because I'm really good at just talking all along.
Hey, Cindy,
Corey,
I'll
no.
chime in here. Well, I'll
Okay.
just say that, some of the things that I hear from teachers and directors when they call and they're looking for some curriculum, they're looking for just some ideas, is that so many of our leaders and our teachers just have this sense of, I'm not sure I'm doing it right. I'm not sure what the right way to do, or how, the right way to instill faith formation, the right way to teach religious lessons. And so they just come from this, this place of kind of self-doubt. And, I think, so I'll let you go with that.
Okay. Well, I certainly get that. After teaching Martin Luther for a year.
Can I just chime in? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm at New Covenant Lutheran Church in Scottsdale. And we have a preschool attached to our congregation. I'm our youth music family minister guy. I know for me, like I lived in Australia for 3.5 years and did ministry out there. And a part of the kind of the Commonwealth idea from England is this idea that each public school teaches theology within it. So every public school in Australia has a chaplain, male or female or whoever. So I was a part-time chaplain for a while. And now since doing that and teaching theology, I know in Australia it was hard. There wasn't a ton of Lutherans in Sydney. And I kind of got all the kids who were kind of on the fringes of faith. And I remember one kid asking if Lutherans are even Christians, and just sharing,
Wow.
like they had never heard what a Lutheran is, right? I think our Luther world is pretty small sometimes. And I think, as someone who's worked in non-denom kind of spaces as well, like I think, just like we're saying about teaching love, teaching that they are forgiven by Christ no matter what. I know at our school right now currently, and reason why I'm on this is, our teachers at our preschool are hesitant to teach, mostly from what I'm understanding is, I don't know if they themselves have been discipled. I don't know if they themselves, their faith is as strong as maybe was expressed when they came on, or something. And that's cool, like if they're there and we can work with that, and that's all right. Like there's like, hey man, you're here, let's disciple you, let's work on that. I think for us, it's trying to figure out how do we train our teachers to teach faith. I know for me, I mean, in my own experience, being honest with where I'm at in my own faith has always been helpful. I do a ministry called Teach One to Lead One here in Scottsdale, which is we go into public schools and teach, we call them universal principles, but they're all based on Beatitudes. And the school system doesn't really notice that part of it, but we're kind of sneaking our way in just to share faith. And these ideas of, what does it mean to respect anybody, or to be kind to anyone, regardless if they've been kind to you or not. And I think it's hard. Yeah. If you have kids that are receptive, that's great. And there's times when you don't have kids that are receptive, but I think it's the hardest part is getting, like we're saying, teachers to feel confident within their own faith to share, and to be able to just be real about, yeah, like we can put Martin Luther on the shelf for a second. Let's just talk about like where you at today, like,
Yeah.
like, did you get in a fight with your parents on your way to school like you did yesterday, or what's up? Like I think just to kind of get to that space of willingness to be honest with yourself about where you're at, but also help them to be honest. And it's hard. I know for me, like working with teenagers and stuff, it's hard now being at a preschool. That's a totally different beast for me. I'm used to all these kind of in-depth, deep conversations with troubled teens, but simplifying it is a big part of what the struggle is now, and equipping our teachers to feel the same. Sorry, that was a really long answer to a very short question. So
No, that's great. And, I understand. My first degree was in early childhood.
sure. Yeah.
But my favorite kids to work with are the mischievous 8th grade boys
That was me.
because they're yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I was a girl, but that was me. But and so I understand that. I also kind of think that those teen years, if you subtract 10 years, that's the 13-year-olds kind of have the same behavior as the 3-year-olds did.
Mhm.
But that's my own personal.
No, it's true. It's 100% true.
Yeah. So I think I heard what you say, and I think we're going to have some answers for you. Greg, let's move on to the curricula structure. And then Alex, I don't want you to think I didn't hear you.
No, you're good.
Specifically, when we go through a lesson, we'll go through the lesson components. There's a piece that I will address for you, which I think will help you equip your
I
teachers.
appreciate it. Yeah. That's why I'm here. That's good.
So, living the word, our classroom product is what we're going to talk about first, and it covers 76 key Bible stories. At Augsburg Fortress, when we were developing curricula, we used to talk about the most common, the most important stories. I think you will find this curriculum easy to use and fun for both students and teachers. It is scripted, so you don't have to have any prior knowledge. If your teachers are concerned that they don't know what to say, all they have to do is say the words that are on the page. It's theologically solid for ELCA Lutherans and ecumenical partners. As I mentioned, all of our contributors are very experienced and live in the trenches, work in the trenches. As Greg mentioned, we strive to use inclusive language in terms of different family structures, genders, economic situations, varying abilities, whether it be developmental or physical. And our pricing is very affordable. Most of the supplies are things you already have on hand. So that's kind of the overall. We'll get into some more details in just a minute here. But that should help a little bit with those teachers who are unsure of themselves. Honestly, we know that if a curriculum is easy for teachers and fun for teachers, it's going to be fun for kids and easy to engage them. We know that your classrooms are filled with kids of all types, sizes, shapes, interests, attention spans. And we believe that when we can embrace those differences and direct lessons in several different ways, present the information in as many ways as we can, it will be more successful. One of the things we strive for is using, having activities that are hands-on, that are thinking, that are working with others, relational, that the one thing we don't have much of is pencil and paper, because we know that does not work alone. So we have lots of options so that you get to pick. And excuse me, I'm just gonna get down a little bit. We have lots of options, so you get to pick. As for prep time, most supplies are basic. All you have to do is grab them. As I said, it's very scripted. And my best example of low prep is last summer for Vacation Bible School. For those of you who are familiar with that, there are 5 separate workshops. And for the first time ever, 3 of my workshop leaders on Wednesday morning had emergencies and couldn't come teach. And I didn't know until that morning. So 15 minutes before we're about to start, with 60 kids, I suddenly am down 3 leaders. And it was really easy for me. And I was using a Spirit and Truth curriculum, one of our Learning Together curriculums. And it was great because I just went to an assistant in each of the workshops or a crew leader and said, here you go, here's the lesson. Can you teach this, please? And literally they had 10 minutes. And that's all it took. And afterwards, they said to me, man, I was terrified, but this was really easy. That's our goal. And it was fun for me to actually live it and see that it works. For each of our lessons, we have several options. So many that it would fill at least an hour and a half if you wanted to use them all. So if you do a daily religion class or faith formation class of 20 minutes, one lesson would easily cover a full week for you. If you do it once a week, there's lots of options and you get to choose the ones that work best for your setting that you think are most fun, and that you think your kids will find most engaging. So first, we're going to talk about our Living the Word classroom, which is the key Bible stories that we have for schools. As I said, it covers 76 key Bible stories over a 2-year cycle. There are 2 different age groups. We have the pre-K to 2nd and then the 3rd to 6th, which keeps all your students on the school on the same stories if you want to do that. We have a sample lesson available for each age range. We will go through a sample lesson shortly. But Alex, this is for your preschool teachers who haven't done it before. For you, trying to make the transition from teenagers to 3, 4, 5-year-olds.
That's what we've done too. Like we have our chapel either Monday or Tuesday, kind of goes back and forth due to our special teachers that come in for dance classes and things with our students. But, a big part of it is, we've kind of put through our, like you're saying, these key Bible stories. And, the challenge this year now is, in the past, we've had like a Bible teacher go classroom to classroom, and kind of do like a 10-minute lesson, maybe twice, 3 times a week or something. But the challenge now is, since we've had some budget cuts and we've changed some staff around and things like that, now that the expectation is for our teachers to teach faith within the class themselves, which is awesome. And it's like, I think it is like a total answer to prayer that everybody's doing it and it's not just one person. But I'm interested to see what Bible stories are there, because we try to do Genesis, not to Revelation, but at least to resurrection, or to Paul, kind of like any kid's Bible would, So
if anyone wants, I do have the scope and sequences ready to go. Would you like me to put those up real quick?
It's up to you, man. It's all good. Yeah.
Why don't you do that, Greg? And we can walk through it and I can talk a little about Ark of Salvation from my...
Sure. Appreciate that, you guys. Sorry, everybody. I'm just taking us for a wild ride here. Hope you're all going to be okay.
Nope. I saw some other people putting their thumbs up, like, yes, we want to see that. And while Greg's doing that, I'll talk a little about...
You guys are like the quietest Zoom people ever, man. Like, come on.
So, or as I said, we have a 2-year cycle. Each year covers what I call the Ark of Salvation, from creation through Pentecost, the start of the early church. And each year it's different stories, but doing that same Ark of Salvation. So we start with Old Testament in the fall. You could use it whenever you want, but the way we've laid it out, and suggest using it as Old Testament in the fall. When it gets into fall quarter to beginning of winter quarter, then we're in the Advent season. We're preparing for Christmas, preparing for Jesus' birth. And then the spring season starts with Ash Wednesday, with the beginning of Lent. So you can see the stories we have up for your blue. We've tried to call them things where it's easy for those who are familiar with Bible stories to recognize what story it is. In some cases, they are combined. Like in winter, we have a Samaritan and Mary and Martha together. There are, well, let's see. I'm going to ask again, any questions or comments on this?
This looks great. It's cool.
Okay, good, good. So as I said, you could do one story a week. If you wanted to, you could spread it out even more so. If you wanted to go with like doing Advent, assuming you're all connected with churches, that the churches themselves on their Sunday morning or Wednesday night worship services are talking about Advent, getting prepared for Jesus. They go right along with that. So good. That sounds like that's helpful for you, Alex.
Yeah, I would love to get that. That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so we're gonna walk through a sample lesson for it's a lower age level, the pre-K to second. There's in layout structure, it's the same for third through sixth graders, except for one piece, which I'll explain. So your blue, and you can use it in any order. Your blue, your green, it does not matter, but it does give you the flexibility of being able to use the same curriculum with different lessons for each year. So, Greg, do we have the table of contents? Or, sorry, cover page. Let's go back one. I messed you up, Greg. So I'm going to mess you up further. Pop down two more. So we have the key. There we go. So there's a title, there's a Bible text for each one, and we have a key verse, which could be used if you're into memory verses, if that could be your memory verse to choose. But every lesson, actually for all of our products, I believe, has a point. And it's what is the focus of a lesson? And for the teacher in me, it was important that we know, so what exactly are we aiming to teach? And in this lesson, God declares that creation is good. And also a Bible nuts and bolts, which is how can we help kids get into the Bible, or why is the Bible important? So starting out the year, we start with what is the Bible? So then now we'll move to the table of contents, Greg. Sorry about that. We have a pretty clear table of contents, I think. So it lists the activities and the supplies needed to the right. And in this case, you can see for story centers, and this is where the pre-K to second grade level curriculum varies from the third through sixth. The story centers are not in the third through sixth, as you imagine. That would sort of be a nightmare, I think. But we do have the story centers, which, is sort of free play, but along the topic of the lesson. So in this one, the story center supplies are Play-Doh, stuffed animals, sand and water play table, or dish pans containing sand or water. So those are pretty easy supplies to get. Into the story is a million years ago, we would have called this, the set, anticipatory set. How do we pique that interest for kids? And then we move into the Bible nuts and bolts. What is the Bible? And in this case, the activity that is saying that the Bible is a library, teaching kids that there's more than one book in this great big book. Let's move on to, there we go, to the next activities, Greg. After we do into the story, we have learning the story and trying to teach the story, hear the story, learn the story in a variety of ways. In this case, it's using different props to use the story. It might be putting the kids in the story and having them act out the story. There's just a variety of different ways that we try and approach this. Living the story is, what do we do in daily life? It's more of a daily life application. In this case, it's learning to care for creation. And for the younger age level, there's always a singing the story and a lot of what we call piggyback songs. So common tunes that have different words to them. So it means even for people like me who I could not hold a tune if my life depends on it, I could get 250 kids on a ball field to shout a song for you, but it won't be musical. Even I can do these kind of song activities. All right, Greg, let's go to there we go. And then we always have 3 additional activities. So, and they will use different ways of learning. So we do have, in this case, a book that kids can make and take home, which has an activity sheet that you print out and use. We have an acting out the story, using their imagination and the drama and creativity we know that all kids have. And then a craft. And this is a hand print craft. So again, the supplies are really easy to grab and find. And at the end of every lesson, we have us sending the story, a way to close up and closing with prayer. Greg, let's go on to an activity so we can talk a little bit. Oh, forgot about the background. Alex, this is one of the things I wrote down that, excuse me, and addressing Corey's, they don't feel qualified, they're nervous. This is the background, a 1-page background of how do we connect last week? What is the story summary? The point, which is basically, why do we care about this story? And giving the teachers the knowledge in a quick 5-minute read so they can feel more comfortable teaching. And then our Bible nuts and bolts.
So Cindy, I'm going to jump in really quick.
Yes, please.
Because Courtney made a comment in the chat, and I think this really points back to maybe supporting her teachers a little more. She said her teachers struggle feeling confident with their faith and struggle to have religion kind of woven into the classroom. And I think this is a great piece. A director might be able to start their week using this background for teachers, and even kind of in a devotion setting, try to bring in your pastor and, have them be able to kind of weave this into more of a devotion for teachers, but to just have this information and for the staff to be able to discuss it themselves before they start to implement it with their kids in case there's questions or they want to do some deeper dives and exploration into what this topic really is about.
Yes, thank you, Corey. And one thing, and this does not appear in every background for teachers, but one thing I really encourage you to help your teachers is to say to them and teach them, you don't always have to know the answer. It can be scary to say, I don't know, but it's one of the best things you can say. If you don't know, admit it, and then follow it up with, but I'll find out. And maybe it means inviting your pastor, your director, or someone else in to address that question, but follow up with it. That helps, as y'all know, it helps the students know teachers aren't perfect, just like pastors aren't perfect. We're all just human beings, all trying the same thing and learning. I want to tell you another little anecdote I had when I was working in a church, and it was a big church, so we had a lot of Sunday school leaders, and a brand new member said, I want to teach Sunday school. Okay, we do the background check, we do all of that. He was, well, to me, a younger person. He was probably in his late 20s, early 30s, came in a suit every week, had no experience working with kids. He was fabulous at doing Sunday school, but he said to me, the reason I want to do this is I don't know much, and I wasn't raised in the church, and I want to learn. And I figure the best way to learn is to be teaching, which I thought was so interesting. And he was just a fabulous teacher. And after he got through his first year of nerves, he was as comfortable as could be. And I wish we had had this curriculum at that time so I could say, here you go, Michael. Here's the background for every single story you are going to teach. So I think this is a really helpful piece. I'll get off my soapbox on this one. Let's go to an activity, Greg. This is a brief description of the story centers. For those of you who have the younger age levels, I know they're just like any other center-based learning that you are doing, teaching that you are doing. Let's move on to into the story, Greg. So this is a standard layout for all of our activities, for all of our lessons, and all of the products we're going to talk about today. So it's got the title. It tells you, okay, this is designed for PK to second. Sometimes there will be activities that will be broken into PKK or just 1 to 2, and it tells you how much time you can anticipate using on this activity. And this talks about God as an artist. I just love that image. Very clearly, supply list, you will need, in this case, nothing. My favorite kind of activities. And then during class, step by step, anything in bold is scripted. So Alex, again, this is another one where if people, or, to Corey's point at the beginning, if teachers are concerned they're not going to say it right, they can just read it. So if there were any preparation needed before class and between the supply list of you will need and the during class, there would be a list of, boy, this is no preparation, very minimal preparation. There we go. There you go. There's a before class, and it will tell you exactly what you need to prep before class. So if for example, you were handing this to a substitute or someone who didn't know they were going to teach, they're just not going to do that before class part. They can just jump into any of the other activities. So as I mentioned, all of the activities are laid out like this. And then when we get to, Greg, let's go to ascending so we can show them ascending. There we go. Ascending, typically we say 5 minutes, and it's very simple. We just explain, what are we going to thank God for? What is our prayer going to be? And we close with a prayer. Any questions on that so far?
Looks great. Love it.
Well, we love to hear that.
It's good.
Greg, do we have the, can we show the take-home piece at the end as well? That's the booklet that we were talking about. So we do have a try it at home so that you can send it home. So if parents are interested, willing, and we know it doesn't happen a lot, but we still try to encourage it, to get families to be all on the same page and learning as well. So it covers the point of the lesson, key verse, and again, a story summary, which typically is shorter, a little shorter than the background we have for the teachers. The Bible nuts and bolts. One of my favorite things when I'm first teaching, if I have a introduction class, and especially for confirmation, is to say, what's the first book in the Bible? And everybody says Genesis. And what's the last book in the Bible? And then they all say Revelations. Well, there's no S at the end. So I just point out, parents don't know everything either, and parents can learn along with us and encourage them to do the lessons at home with material we sent home. So, okay, Greg, let's go to the next one. And the last page of our try it at home and the last page of the lesson has some family discussion questions to hopefully make it easier to discuss for parents if they're inclined to do that. And then family devotions, if they choose to do it. And these are really quick as well. It's read a Bible text. God said, for the first one, as you can see, God said it is good after each day of creation. Take turns naming things that God created. And after each person shares, respond, and it was good. If you're not inclined to send these home, or you could even do these quick devotions in your class, starting out the day, every day, just one brief little faith formation piece that you can use. You could also use these if you do staff devotions before school starts. You could use these as those ideas. So that's our classroom product. Greg, do you think we have, and Corey, enough time to go through learning together? It's a quick one.
Yeah,
The
I
other
think so.
Okay, the other product I wanted, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say one other thing about those family devotions. They are also a really great way to share information between school and church. So if your school is able to put something in your church newsletter, your bulletin, sharing something like these little nuggets that all families can do with their children, whether they are enrolled in your program or not, whether they are, even children in your community. Maybe it's something grandparents want to share with their grandchildren over the phone. It's a great connection piece that direction as well.
Thank you, Corey. The other product I wanted to share with you is our Learning Together. And those are topical units or thematic units. They can be used for if you do intergenerational events like grandparent events, family events, or congregation school events, or Vacation Bible School. Some of them in particular were designed for VBS, but we have currently 7 different topics, and we're looking to add more in the next year, I believe. Greg's nodding, so that's a yes. So we have the I am statements of Jesus, the different names that Jesus has given us. I am the bread of life, the light of the world, the good shepherd, the true vine, the resurrection, and the life. We have heroes of the Bible. And one of the things I really like about it is we've included a couple of women because women are important in the Bible. God's gift of water. Now, that is one I actually used myself as a VBS, and it was a blast. So at Created to Care, I volunteered this last summer at someone else's VBS who was using it and ran the craft workshop and thoroughly enjoyed it, and so did the rest of the workshop leaders. We do have a whole unit on women of the Old Testament. Sarah, Miriam, Rahab, Deborah, Hannah. Bible 101. Now, this is a great one to start the year off with, especially if you have a middle school at your school. This is great to get the kids prepared for confirmation or to use. I myself used it for confirmation for my first unit each year. And then we have Do Justice. Our world is just so chaotic right now. So this kind of goes with your Alex talking about universal principles. Honor the image of God, work for shalom, protect the vulnerable, really important lessons. Mm-hmm. Greg, let's move on to the sample. Again, it's very similar in layout. We're looking at the Created Care, which, gosh, that's our newest unit, isn't it, Greg? So you will see that it has, let's go to the overview page. We've got our Bible reading, our key verse again, and the point. Why are we teaching this lesson? We're teaching the lesson on air and sky because we are created to care for air and sky. If we look at our table of contents, it's laid out very similar. And if you've ever worked at a VBS, if you think about the different workstations or workshops that you do, there's a large group opening that we have set up for this curriculum, and then 5 different workshops: storytelling, craft, science, games. Greg, what am I missing? It's on the next page. Snack. Thank you. And one of the things I really like about our snack station is this isn't about, it's not about saying, here's a protein bar, it's a healthy snack. It's really hands-on. The kids create something that they will then eat. So it's a hands-on snack. Games are just what you would think. There's always a couple options, and they are designed to get kids. Some of them are competitive, some of them are just plain fun. Storytelling is a creative way to tell the story. Craft is just that, hands-on, let's make something. And science. And that's one of my favorite things, is bringing science into faith formation. Science and faith can go hand in hand. They are not opposing forces. And I think it's important to teach children that. Greg, let's look at a lesson.
Just to clarify really quick,
Yes.
learning together is like church and school curriculum stuff, but the living the word is specifically like classroom, right?
That living the word is an overarching brand for us with several
Right.
different products in it. Classroom is specifically for classrooms. This could be used as a summer camp. It could be used as a family, if you do family events.
Family Yep.
So it can be used to supplement. You could also do it as thematic units and do one workshop a week over a course of 5 weeks. So just a little different approach.
Love it.
So we still have a background for leaders with the point, and then interesting facts or facts we thought were interesting that people might not even realize. So I always think of the did you know as being a great way to interest older kids into the lesson, to help them figure out, whoa, wait, what do you mean that the total mass of the world is 5.5 quadrillion? Whoa, right there, that's a big number. I, of course, would be the one who had to figure out if I could write that number down and see how many zeros I would put in that. And then the why it matters. Once again, why is it important that we're learning this story? All right, Greg, let's go down one more and then I'll get tired of talking soon, I'm sure. So we have ways we can help, which is the service component or the daily application. In this particular unit, it was connected. We worked with Greg, Bible Worm. Is that right?
Yep.
Bible Worm, which did weekly podcasts on sermon series. So it connects to an Old Testament reading and a prayer of preparation, which I didn't mention in our classroom, but just to help teachers get into the right mindset. All right, Greg, and our opening. And you can see it's laid out slightly different wording. Instead of you will need, it's what part of the plan is this? What part of the lesson is this? What do I need? And then the instructions, and again, scripted out. So anything in bold is exactly a teacher just, or a workshop leader or volunteer just gets to read it. The same as in our classroom lessons, if there's preparation needed, it says, here you go. Here's 2 things you need to do before class. So we have the stations, the storytelling, craft, science, games, and snack. And they are a combination of physical, using large muscle, small muscle, as I said, building snack. And then, as always, we have a closing prayer to use as ascending. So there is this our take home, Greg? Oh, for the home, yes. So once again, we have the take home piece with the point, the key verse, those did you know, because maybe that will get some parents interested in learning about this too. Again, why do we care about this story? And some discussion starters and prayer for the week. Do y'all have any questions on living on the Learning Together product? Can you see any interesting applications for your church, for your school, or for your church and school combined? And I'll turn it over to you, Greg.
All right, let me figure out how to change back to the PowerPoint. There we go. And all right, and so our curriculum products are based on the attendance range. So if you have a small school with a smaller budget, you would pay less. A big school would pay more. That allows us, and this is also how we do it with congregations, churches. So because the size of your class is often related to the size of the church, and we want it to be available for the smaller ones, but we also need to pay our contributors. So the larger ones help us do that. Every single product we have, including these ones, have a sample lesson. The sample lesson we have for the Learning Together is actually from our I Am Statement of Jesus curriculum with 5 lessons, giving away one of them for each curriculum is a bit much, but it will all show you what that is. You can, if you sign up for our e-newsletter, you can actually download the entire I Am Statements of Jesus for free for signing up. And we actually have, in addition to the quarterly newsletter, we've actually in the last few months introduced a monthly that has very short things on topics for leaders. Again, a lot of our most of our customers at this time are congregations, so they're somewhat directed at youth leaders, children's leaders, pastors, and the like, but I don't see any reason why they can't do that. Sometimes we actually have one of our contributors who is a special ed teacher, so she's been doing a series on neurodiversity. Which our last one was on for churches on Rally Day, a start of the year, how to think about that. So and you can choose, if you sign up for a newsletter, you can choose quarterly, you can choose monthly, both. I don't know if you can actually process it with neither, but if you want, you can try. And again, each product has a full sample lesson for that. Are there any other questions? Again, I can answer sort of business overall things. Content, Cindy is the best person for that. Or I can do theology too.
So I want to check in. There's a question in the chat I want to make sure we answered, or to see if we need to expand at all. Is this curriculum only stories, or are there supplemental pieces? Did we answer that question for you? And this was from Deb. And I can't tell. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we covered all of the questions that we had in the chat. Okay, it looks like Doc Johnson has a question about Trinity.
So,
Greg, do you want to take that one?
Oh, yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So we all know that Trinity Sunday comes at the end of the school year. It comes in June, usually May or June, or something like that. It's an add-on Sunday. For me, with any curriculum that I've used, whether it be group magazine or other stuff, VBS, Lutheran stuff, whatever, what I teach as a pastor is right from the very beginning to see the Trinity in the entire Bible, from page 1, right from Genesis right to the end. And that's kind of like the overarching theme for me. And I have to add it in, which is fine because I appreciate having other material there that I can use and add in. But for me, I've never found any material that is Trinity focused like I would like it to be. I guess I have to write my own when I do write my own, because that's what I do. But anyway, just kind of food for thought, because as Lutherans, I mean, the Trinity is our overriding doctrine as we see it, and to have it appear, even in the Old Testament, it's there. We just don't have the resources to pull it out unless you go in and do your own study. So just an observation is what I do as a pastor when I do chapel, preschool, K-8, whatever. I'm always very Trinity focused and trying to bring that in, because otherwise the Old Testament is unrecognizable, if not dangerous, without the Trinity.
And actually, as I mentioned, the first curriculum that I did started in 2010 is on liturgy and church year. And so we actually do have a lesson for both pre-K through second and third through sixth that is talking about Holy Trinity Sunday. The pre-K through second is mostly on the mystery of it. And so with that particular one, and it can be purchased separately on its own. We have Reader's Theater skit for the third through sixth grader, and a illustrated story for the pre-K through second, as well as activities to do that. So we can, if you want to, we can have a further discussion about that if you like to purchase that separately. But we mentioned the Trinity specifically on our final lesson on Pentecost, the Holy Spirit, to bring the Holy Spirit into a bit of context. But it is true, it doesn't come up a lot, in part because it's a heavy topic, and it's a topic that's easy to get wrong. And so it's definitely there throughout, but because it's something I also feel strongly about. But again, we don't necessarily bring it into every or most lessons specifically.
So, Greg, if I may, could you say the name of that curriculum that you're talking about? Because it is not classroom, it is not the learning together.
Right. That one is called Spirit and Truth, Teaching Kids the Heart of Worship, or shortened to Spirit and Truth Kids. And again, if you look on our website, and we don't have time for that, but if you look on our website, if you find something that says worship and liturgy, that will direct you to that curriculum.
And one thing that we didn't talk about, and I apologize for not doing it earlier, is that we really do look at age appropriateness and the different stages of faith development as kids mature. A 3-year-old clearly has a different ability to understand Jesus than a 6th grader would. And I guess I could have chosen a harder topic, but I'm not sure what to use as my example. So I apologize for not bringing that up earlier.
So again, this, if you can see the slide, I have a QR code that if you want to grab a picture of, it will take you to the classroom for schools overview page. On that page, it's going to take me a moment to pull that up, but it will give the year blue, the year green sample lesson, those scope and sequence documents, exactly the ones I showed you, as well. And below that is a link to the Learning Together, but you can also find that under the program product overview as thematic units. We tried in that particular shop. We'll give you a more specific way to drill down into the different products, but those product overviews from the top, we'll get that. Key Bible Stories is how we look at this classroom curriculum and those thematic units, but this QR code will take you directly to that classroom. Our website is spiritandtruthpublishing.com. I can drop into the chat real quick. This is my email address. This is Cindy's email address, and there is a contact form on the website that comes directly to my email address. So, if I can.
And Greg, just let me also say that when I get this recording ready to send to our registered attendees, I will include in that email the direct links to the things that you just mentioned, I'll also make sure that I find that Spirit and Truth Kids page so that we'll have a direct link to where the information on the Trinity curriculum is located.
Thank you. And Corey, please do include our emails. And I
You
want
bet.
to encourage you, if you have questions, just feel free to contact one or both of us. As you may know, and Corey has sat at a table next to me at an event. I love to talk about our products. I really believe in them.
And she loves to support the ELEA. When I have to leave my table for something, Cindy is a great ELEA rep for us. So thank you for championing us as well.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Anybody else have any last minute questions? I'll make sure we have a little time.
You
All
gotta
right,
get the,
I will,
you
go
get
ahead,
this
Alex.
guy to, Doc needs to, you gotta get on this team, man, get that curriculum written up with these guys.
Right, that's what I was thinking too. A new
Combined forces, brother,
contributor.
come on. That's good. No, thank you, you guys. Good job. It was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all
you,
for
everybody.
being here.
Have a great rest of your week.